Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. Today we're looking at some interesting cards that are trending because they have the potential to be meta relevant this upcoming format. Now, none of these are going to be huge game-breaking cards like SP Little Knight or Wanted. Rather, these are smaller cards that potential contenders or tier 1.5 or tier 2 decks can possibly use moving forward. Now, while these may not be the most significant dollar-wise, they can be a signal of shifts in the market as well as the format moving forward, so we want to make note of them wherever possible. Let's get started. So to kick things off, we're starting off with a card that should be at least a little bit familiar. It's Raid Raptor Arsenal Falcon. So this card is a generic rank 7 monster that's obviously intended to be used by Raid Raptors, but it's actually something that's better known for being used by Kashtira. Although it does have some Raid Raptor specific effects, its main appeal is that you can detach a material from it to special summon a level 4 winged beast monster from your deck. Now, back a couple of formats ago, this card was used as a tech in Kashtira alongside Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds, as if Kashtira zone locking everyone wasn't oppressive enough. With the ban to the Wind Barrier statue, this card fell off, but it seems that it's being picked up by Kashtira once again, with Unicorn going back to 3. Kashtira is a much simpler deck now that basically just feels like spamming big beaters and putting out a couple of Xyz monsters every turn. Arsenal Falcon is used because it can be summoned out easily and brings Blackwing Zephyros the Elite out of the deck, who can then be used alongside Kashtira Riseheart to make a rank 4 Xyz play. This widens the pool of available extra deck options that the deck has, and although Kashtira probably aren't too relevant this format, it's pretty cool to see players trying to innovate with the cards once again. Arsenal Falcon has one super rare printing from Rise of the Duelist, as it wasn't reprinted in the tins from its year, even despite Kashtira needing to use it. Rise of the Duelist is a set that is hard to come by, so even for just a super rare from there, you're now looking at having to pay $3 per copy of Arsenal Falcon. Hopefully you can dig a couple of these out of your holo bulk, because although the card may seem like an interesting little trick, I doubt it will actually be relevant in terms of the meta, and I definitely recommend offloading these as soon as possible. Next up, let's take a look at Skill Drain. So Skill Drain is a card that I think has a lot of the player base really divided. Some people love using the card, others just really hate playing against it and think the card should be limited or banned. Skill Drain is actually pretty straightforward. You pay 1,000 life points and you negate the effects of all face-up monsters on the field. Now, depending on what deck you're playing, this can be really devastating. For something like Fluwandereeze, Pearly, and maybe Rescue Ace, this card can basically stop you from playing the game altogether, but if you're playing a deck with a ton of big beaters that appreciate a simplified game state, maybe it's not so bad. The most recent ban list saw Rivalry of Warlords, Goes in Match, and There Can Be Only One all go to 1, 3 really big floodgates that a lot of different decks used, and Skill Drain is one of the few floodgates that we have left. At the moment, it's actually a pretty decent tech choice too. It's useful in both Labyrinth and Fire Kings, as each deck basically revolves around getting big monsters onto the field, and each deck has effects that activate in the graveyard that are unaffected by Skill Drain. Now, in terms of price, there are quite a few mid and low end printings of Skill Drain, so we haven't seen too much movement there. Even with the Turbo Pack Ultra Rares, they look so much like the Maven's Ultras that they're only around $14 each. However, the printing we should be paying attention to is the Ultimate Rare, which came out in OTS Tournament Pack 19. These have been really low for a long time. For a while they were down at like $20 each, and I would just buy them every time I saw them. For now they are up to $30 each, so a decent $10 jump. Normally, I would think that these do have a lot of upward potential, but at the same time, I am a bit wary of investing in high rarity staples, just in case we do see something like that Rarity Collection 2 come out. I think that if you can grab the alties at around $20 to $25, that's a good place to offer for the card. If not, just stick with playing the Maven's Ultras, which are available for only a couple of dollars each. Up next, we're looking at a pretty meta-relevant card here. It's Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion. Of course, Ghost Belle is one of the Ghost Girl hand traps, and with this and Ash being the only ones in Rarity Collection, I think this one sort of got slept on a bit early on. We haven't seen too much play from Ghost Belle recently, but I think that moving into this upcoming format, we're likely to see it much more. It's a very effective card against multiple things next format, as you can negate the effects of things like the Promethean Princess and Big Welcome Labyrinth with it. However, the other cool thing is that decks like Fire King, Rescue Ace, and Labyrinth can actually also play the card as well. A lot of players are considering DD Crow as a hand trap next format, and Belle helps to ensure that your Garunix doesn't get banished, and that your Princess and Big Welcome actually have chances to resolve. That being said, Quarter Century Ghost Belle has actually been on an upward trend, basically ever since its price settled at $20. Despite being so cheap, I remember the card jumping up to around $30 to $35, and now here we are a month later and quarter century Ghost Bells are now between $55 and $60 on TCG Player. The weird thing is, this still doesn't feel like too bad of a price to pay, considering we have the original Starlight Rares from back in Dimension Force, and even though they were like $300 before and are currently down at $120, the quarter century version is still just a fraction of the price. While most of the other printings are pretty cheap, it's worth noting that the collector's rares are also trending up, as they've gone from $2 to $3 to now sitting at $10 each. Ghost Bell is about to see a ton more play after the release of Phantom Nightmare, so make sure that you pick up a set of whatever rarity you'd like to play the card in. Alright, so it feels weird to have actually talked about GOATY cards for 2 market watches in a row, but I guess 2024 is just going to be that type of year, since we're talking here about Pace's Light of the GOATY. Paces is a level 2 fish tuner that is a pretty decent extender for the GOATY archetype. You can banish it from your side of the field to special summon any fish from your hand, and then it summons itself during the next standby phase and allows you to quick synchro during your opponent's main phase into a synchro fish monster. Now, as we talked about earlier this week, GOATY Runic seems to be a deck that a lot of players are taking seriously, with the new GOATY and fish support coming in Phantom Nightmare. Although you can only make fish monsters, synchro summoning on the opponent's turn can be really devastating, especially when you can go into cards like White Aura Whale and GOATY of the Deep Beyond. Paces came out in Power of the Elements, but as we talked about, none of the GOATY cards got Megatin reprints, so we're starting to see a ton of them start to creep up in price across the board. Paces has gone from being a 75-cent card to now being a whole $4 each, which seems ridiculous for an archetype that a lot of players just laughed at because it was so bad. We'll have to wait for about another month and a half before we get to see just how well GOATY Runic can actually perform at a big event. But for now, maybe if you can snag a copy or 2 of this card at your locals, if you are interested in playing the deck, that might be a good idea while the card is still relatively cheap. Okay, so this feels almost as strange to talk about as the GOATY cards. Next up is Evilzor Lars. Lars is a generic rank 6 monster that's actually a really decent card. While it has material, it can't be targeted with monster effects, and when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can detach 1 or 2 material from it depending on if it has all reptile and dinosaurs as material, and negate a face-up card on the field. So yes, this card provides an interesting sort of negation, and it is generic. The question though, since this card came out, has always been, what deck is there that's exactly going to be able to use this card and abuse it consistently? Well, it turns out that there's a variant of Snake Eye running around that plays Evil Tile monsters, all enabled by a card called Evil Tile Megachirella, which just happens to be a level 1 fire monster that can be special summoned off of the original Sinful Spoils. There's a small combo you can do with the card where you use Evo Singularity and a couple of other cards, and depending on your hand you can set up both Evilzar Dolka as well as Lars. It's definitely a cool combo, certainly unexpected because I don't think anyone ever really thought that Evil Tile cards would be good in the year 2024. The real question now is whether this is just a gimmick variant of the deck or if it's going to actually be a really real threat. Now price-wise, Lars was probably a bit too cheap before. This is a secret from Duelist Nexus. It was only $2 to $3, but it's now up to $6 a piece, whereas with the QCRs, those were down at $25 to $30, but they're now actually just over the $50 mark. Obviously, it'll take some time to see how the format develops and whether or not this Evil Tile Snake Eye variant is going to be meta relevant, but if you are interested in playing the strategy, you might want to pick up a copy of Lars while the card is still reasonably cheap. Alright, I guess we do have one main meta card to talk about for today, and that is Diab Belstar. So unless you haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh the last few months, you should know what Diab Belstar is. It's part of the strongest engine in Yu-Gi-Oh right now, and it's helped to push Fire Kings and Rescue Ace to be 2 of the best decks in the game, and looks to make them even stronger post Phantom Nightmare. The Diab Belstar package is a big consistency boost for them, as it sets the original Sinful Spoils from deck, and gets them access to level 1 fire monsters, either Hydrant or Ponix, each of which is like a 1-card starter. Now, even though we haven't hit Phantom Nightmare yet, we're starting to see Diab Belstar continue to move back up in price. This card was at $20 to $25 for quite a while. It bounced up to $30 and had stayed there for a bit, but now we're seeing it move up past that to the $35, almost $40 mark. I believe that this is partially due to Airlifter being hit on the most recent ban list for Rescue Ace. Airlifter was a big consistency card for the deck, so to make up for it, I think some Rescue Ace players are temporarily looking at playing 2 to 3 copies of Diab Belstar instead of just 1, so that they can have the more consistent access to Hydrant. With this one, I don't really know what to tell you guys if you don't already own the cards. The Wanted engine is one of the best engines in the entire game, but at the same time, I do understand it's really expensive, so it's not really accessible for too many people. I do think that as we have Bonfire and Populous come out, the main decks are gonna have to shrink down a bit more, so it really wouldn't surprise me to see Diab Belstar cut down to just being played at 1 again, but of course we won't know until the format is officially here. One last card for us to look at today, it's Ice Jade Ran Aran. So I think we talked about this card a few months ago, but I noticed that this card has been moving once again, so I wanted to bring it back up. Aran is basically a 1-card level 10 water synchro monster. You discard another water from your hand to summon this level 7 tuner out, as well as a level 3 non-tuner token, but then you're locked into only summoning water monsters from your extra deck. Now essentially, this card lets you summon Lancia out extremely easily, Lancia being one of the new Ice Barrier synchro monsters that can cheat other Ice Barriers out of the extra deck. Now over in the OCG, Ice Barriers are a pretty interesting rogue tier 2.5 strategy, and they're generally running 3 copies of Aran over there. Because of this, and because a lot of people are actually really excited to see Ice Barriers hopefully do something, a lot of people are looking to pick up Aran now, to where its 1 ultra rare printing from Cyberstorm Access is currently at $9. Now the big question here is when exactly the new cards are going to come to the TCG. Cyberstorm Access should be included in the 2024 tins, so if the new cards come out too late in the year, maybe Aran will have already been reprinted. However, if the Ice Barrier stuff came out in say April or May, then I could definitely see Aran spiking in price immediately after the release, as people want to try using the new cards right away. Personally, I wouldn't hold on to too many copies of this card. If you're interested in the deck, keep a set, that's fine, but other than that, keep them in your trade binder ready to offload once that reveal is confirmed. Okay guys, that is all we have for today. I know definitely one of the weirder market watches we've done. It's especially strange because it's 2024 and we're talking about Goaty, Evilsaurs, and Ice Barriers potentially being meta relevant this year, but hey, I guess new support really can break any deck if it's good enough. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's market watch, please make sure that you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.